If you can't tell where the next daily candle is likely to go, like you have no business being on the 1 minute chart. Literally. Because then it is literally noise. Yeah. Like I know people like the 1 minute's not noise, like there's info there. I was like, there is if you have the higher time frame context.
Yes.
Right. The whole point of trading on the 1 minute is you're trying to sync up with a higher time frame.
What is up, guys, and welcome to the Market Moguls Podcast. My name is Jesse, or as most of you guys know me, Casper SMC, and I'm super excited for today's episode. I got my good friend Trader Mayne, super OG in the ICT space.
Awesome, man. Yeah, thanks for having me. Dylan, Trader Mayne on Twitter. But yeah, stoked for this, man. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Bro, it's so weird. Dylan, like I can't. It's like I met him as Trader Mayne, and it's just weird calling anybody by their name. We have like all our Twitter names and stuff.
It's like getting a tattoo when you're super young, and then you look at it later in life. Like I was 24 when I made the account. I didn't think it was gonna, kind of become my entire identity, but here we are.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes I wish I would have just made mine my name, because it's like we were even saying before, you were like, do I call you Jesse or Casper? I was like, Bro, whichever works, because everybody is probably half confused. I've had people ask me like, there's like, is that a different, like who's this is you, right? And I'm like, yeah, bro, that's me.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So I guess I think what would be cool is to share a little bit about your story, because a lot of people don't know how long you've been trading ICT, because most people, including myself even, have only been trading ICT for a couple years, because I got super popular with the 2022 mentorship, but you've been trading it since what, like 20?
Gosh, I mean, I first found ICT in like 2011. Dude, back then it was on forums and stuff, right? Like we didn't really have Twitter and YouTube, and I think people who discovered ICT these days are pretty spoiled with what they're getting, with how much stuff he's released. Because back in the day, you had to pay for all that. Like I paid for his mentorship back in the day, and I went through all the different peaks and valleys of him saying he's quitting and he's never posting again, to coming back and selling another mentorship. But yeah, I found him in 2011. Started trading his stuff in 2013, 14. I wasn't very good, initially. But if you go back to 2014 on Twitter, you can see me posting order blocks on Bitcoin charts and things like that. And no one else was really doing it at the time. Now, if you're on Twitter, it seems like everybody is trading a variation of smart money concepts, price action, whatever you want to call it. So it's crazy how it's grown. I mean, he's got 1 million subscribers on YouTube now.
Yeah, he just hit it.
Yeah.
It's cool, man. I didn't even know it was that long. That's crazy. So what would you say, like, starting then? I mean, we all know like ICT's changed a lot over the years. Like there was even times where he was using moving averages and stuff. Oh, yeah. So it's changed like a lot. So like you said, I think people are spoiled, because not only has his method of teaching and the availability of his content has grown a lot, I think, and gotten a lot better, but also like the strategy itself, and I'm sure this is the same for you. Like I know that I get better as a trader after teaching people. Like you'll start to learn little things and just get a different perspective almost from explaining or like verbalizing it to people. So I know that he's probably done the same thing. But I mean, you even interviewed him back in how long ago was that?
2017.
How did that happen?
Yeah, it was interesting. So I mean, there was a lot of controversy. Crypto Twitter, kind of where I hang out, a lot of similarities to the FX or money Twitter space. Tons of skeptics, right? There's so much skepticism because I think most people, when they see someone else making money, it's much easier to assume that it's BS than it's actually maybe a skill that this person has built and crafted. And so when I started succeeding, I think a lot of people were skeptical because I was very vocal about how I learned. I think there's this kind of almost like Illuminati type of view on money Twitter where it's like, I know what I'm doing, but if you want in, you got to pay me, or I'm not going to tell you the source. Where I was like, listen guys, I learned all my stuff from this guy. I was never shy to say it, because people are like, that's just supply and demand. I'm like, maybe it is, but the way I learned it was from him, and he calls it an order block, and that's why I do it this way. So he actually reached out to me on Twitter and asked me if I was like interested in interviewing him. Of course I jumped at the opportunity because I thought it'd be, so interesting. I mean, for all of his flaws, which there are some, 95% of what I do is stuff I learned directly from him. And whether or not he invented it, whether or not he uses it himself and is making money, it doesn't matter. I mean, my kind of argument I would have with people is like, well, he's an educator, right? He's not an actual trader. It's like, well, he educated me and I'm making money. So, what else do you need, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think a lot of things with trading, like kind of touching on how you said a lot of people, they see other people doing well, and it's just like they almost can't believe it. Just like they see ICT, teaching so many people, and they just, oh, this has to be a scam, right? Because it's not working for me.
Yeah.
But it's just like you said, it definitely is working. We see everybody that is successful with ICT. Now we all also know trading has a high failure rate, right?
Yeah.
And that's not just ICT, right? But I think it's kind of silly when people say it just doesn't work, or it's just complete, bullshit, or it's just a scam, whatever, because there's no way this many people have seen as much success using it if it was just a total scam. And like you said, so many people also say it's copy and paste from, whatever. Who knows? Maybe it is, but even if it is, he did a better job of putting it together in a way that people actually digest and can go out and apply. There's a reason it's the most popular way to trade right now.
100%. I mean, so much trading methodology is scattered, right? He put it in a way where it's like, listen, if you follow these steps, like he taught you a system, right? He systematized it for me, and he made it about the numbers for me, and that's something I never got because I paid for other mentorships, paid groups and all that stuff, some mixed success. But for him, he made it in a way where I was like, okay, I know exactly what I'm doing. It's almost mechanical. Obviously, there's always some subjectivity, and discretion involved in trading. But he taught several mechanical strategies where it's like, listen, this is the exact time of day you want to look at the market. These are the exact kind of checklist of things you want to see play out. And, this is when you're going to end, like down to being like, you want to enter during this 15-minute window. No one had done that. And that was what was most eye-opening for me, was trying it myself, right? Rather than being the skeptic, which is so easy to do online, especially in money, finance, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. It's so easy to be like, this guy must be full of it.
Yeah.
He's got the nice watch, he's got the nice car, and he's just selling me the dream. But it's like with trading, yeah, it takes a while to get good, but you can open up the chart, go on TradingView, it's free, and see if it works. And that's what I did. I started marking these levels out. I'm like, oh, like price seems to react at these levels he says they are. And then it just kind of progressed from there. And then once I kind of got the itch, he has so much content. You can get to like a doctorate level, understanding of the ICT stuff. And there's guys on Twitter who, I look at their charts and I don't even understand them. And I consider myself an ICT trader, but they're going down to this crazy minute level of detail. And that's great if it works for them. I found some of the kind of basic, simple concepts that he shares, order blocks, runs on liquidity, market structure shifts. Like you can create a strategy out there, and I've created a living out of it. So much respect to ICT, love him or hate him. I mean, changed my life.
Yeah, no, same. I agree 100%, bro. And touching on going for the simple stuff, I see some people like you saying they just have it's like 50 different confluences, and maybe they're just kind of marking up the chart. Like I think there's duality to it. Like on one side, I think it overcomplicates it, and people are going to just think that you're going to do that every time you trade. I don't think people do that every time they trade. But then the other side is that, okay, we're recapping the day. Here's all the different opportunities you could have had and all the different ways you could have, captured these trades. But I agree, like simplicity scales, complexity fails always. Yeah. It's going to be, and trading's already a hard enough mental game, right? And so touching on something else that you brought up, like you said, I like what you said that it's, yes, there are mechanical strategies, but nothing is fully mechanical in trading. And if it is, like it's just a bot. Like, and how many bots have you seen that work very well?
Well, if you got one, let me know. I'll sell it to a hedge fund.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I always laugh when these guys are selling bots, like, on Instagram for like something like $147. Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, I'm sure that makes sense.
Guaranteed 5% every month. It's like, okay.
Yeah, dude. Pass your prop firm. And it's just like, I don't know how people don't realize it's a scam, but it's because people want easy, right? Like people always want easy, man.
Yeah, it's the shortcut. I learned something a long time ago, early in my trading journey, from a different paid kind of community that I was in that was more focused around psychology of trading, which is one of those things that isn't mechanical, right? And I tell people that all the time. I'm like, I can teach you how to mark up the chart. I'll show you. They'll be like, oh, are you worried about edge erosion? Like if you show everyone what you do, like it's not going to work anymore. I was like, no, because 99.9% of you are not even going to try it.
Yeah.
And then of the 0.1% that do, most of them will fail anyways because they're not putting in the reps. And it's the hard part's the mental game. You know what I mean? Like you're in the trade now and it's not going your direction. Like what are you doing? You can't code that in a bot. That's something that you get through reps. I always liken it to sports. It's like, you take 10,000 free throws with your right hand, and then all of a sudden you go and try and take one with your left hand. Like what do you expect to happen? Like you need those repetitions. So then when you're in the game, So what if you miss a couple shots? It's like, okay, I'm doing the same things every time. It's going to work. I have the data. But it was the rule of the atom is what this guy taught me about. It's basically, 99% of the atom is empty space, and 1% is where kind of all the action happens. And that's applies to life and trading in so many ways. Like all those statistics you hear, 95% of traders are going to lose money. 9 out of 10 people are going to fail at this. And it's so true. And the 1% that, seem to succeed, and that's all that you see amplified on social media, I think it makes it very easy to forget, the work that went in to get where we are. I think a lot of people just say, oh, well, it's easy for you. It's like, I've been doing this for a decade. Mm-hmm. Like I've put in Malcolm Gladwell, I've put in 10,000 hours in the charts with the data. So yeah, it looks easy for me, but trust me, it's not. I think, like you said, the ability to teach something is like a level of mastery. Mm-hmm. If you understand it well enough that you can show it to someone else, that means you've kind of mastered that. And I think people underestimate what ICT did in that sense. Like to be able to communicate this to someone who's never traded before just shows you how well he understands what he's sharing with you. And so, it's social media stuff. I think honestly, people underestimate, they're skeptics, and you kind of got to ignore the noise, and those willing to put in the work, they will.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%, man. And, I like that you always make it clear that it's not easy, right? Because a lot of the people that are pushing stuff, they're like, oh, get rich overnight, basically. Here's the watch, here's the Lambo, all this stuff. And I think that, the trading industry overall, I think is on a good transition from that. Like we're starting to see more people come up that are a little bit more reasonable, more honest, more transparent.
For sure.
You have third-party verification now too with prop firms. It's not just people, hey, here's my $800,000 day on US 30. You know what I'm saying, on their broker, that they're promoting. So it's nice to see the transparent shift, man. But another thing that I think a lot of people with ICT is they just trade either futures, like indices, or they trade Forex. But you pretty much trade all crypto, right?
Yeah, primarily. And I highly suggest you guys do too. It's way easier. No, I mean, I first got into crypto, funnily enough. I had a friend of mine named Kyle. So if you're watching this, Kyle, shout out to you. He basically would take me to all these multi-level marketing luncheons. You know what I mean? And I'm I'm 22, right? So he's like, dude, there's beer and there's food. I'm like, okay, I'm in. And then I'd show up and they'd put up a screen and it's a triangle, but this time it's upside down. And I'm like, bro, it's a pyramid scheme, but we're here for the lunch and the free food and the beer. So when he told me he had discovered the future of money, I was skeptical. I was like, yeah, Bitcoin, I'm sure that this is going to replace money. And Bitcoin at the time was $50 for one. Dude, that's insane. And so I ignored him initially because I was like, you're nuts. I'm not listening to this. But then he would reach out to me and be like, oh, now it's at $200, $300. So I got intrigued and I created a Twitter account. This is April of 2014. Bitcoin was, maybe $100 to $200. I bought a bunch at the time, what I thought was a bunch, and it went bananas. It went to $1,200 per. So at 23, 24, I'd made, a little bit of money into what I perceived to be a lot at the time. I quit my job. I'd told my parents, I'm like, listen, I'm a day trader now. I don't know what you're talking about, but I just made 100x on my investment in 3 months. So I don't need any of this anymore. I quit my job at the bank, and I was like, I'm going to do this full time. And that was basically the absolute top of the market. So if you go look at April, May of 2014, basically topped to 1,200 and went straight down for 3 years. And I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to trade. I just bought and things went up. So I assumed I knew what I was doing. You don't know the difference of are you just, ICT talks about this, are you just getting lucky right now because everything's going up, or do you actually know what you're doing? And I was the former. I just was getting lucky. The timing was right. I didn't sell anything. I didn't know I could take profit. I didn't know I could short. I didn't know anything. So I basically round tripped and continued to pile in more money, just thinking, oh, it's got to go back up. And that was kind of my first taste of the market in general. And I ate it. Definitely sucked. But that actually drove me then to FX, because I was like, there's got to be a rhyme to the reason. How does this work? Crypto wasn't super sophisticated at that time, but FX had been around. And, it was the early days of FX Twitter and YouTube. And I found ICT. and the charts started to make sense for me. And I started getting decent at trading FX. I took his 2016 mentorship. I was trading FX. I was trading gold. That was probably my favorite asset. But then right around 2016, 17, crypto started picking up again. And I'm like, I wonder if this stuff I learned in FX is going to translate. And it absolutely translated. I'd say even in some senses better because there's less sophistication, right? Like when you're trading FX, you're trading against banks and hedge funds, and there's high frequency algos. Crypto's got more of that now, but back in 2016, 17, like it was you and me in the order book, like PvP, and it was like very much like human psychology and just like the basic stuff, like just order blocks, bullish order block, price can't go up, bearish order block, price can't go down. It just worked, and I was like, okay, like this seems to be a thing, and it just kind of all culminated at the same time. I started trading. I did pretty well in that bull run. I started posting about my journey on Twitter, and kind of the rest is history. It just snowballed from there.
Dude, that's it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar. Like in 2016, I kind of went through the thing that you went through in 2014. I got lucky and thought oh, this is it. This is what I'm gonna do. And it's actually pretty interesting because I didn't know that was. I knew you got started a long time ago, but I actually wasn't even aware. So that's super dope, man.
Yeah, been journey.
Yeah. So like you said now too, I think that crypto is becoming more like Forex in a sense that there's way more big money involved, right? Like now we have so many different fundamental drivers. Like right now we've got the ETF talk. There's, all sorts of different massive investors. There's Bitcoin to 250,000, Bitcoin's going to 10,000 or something, so there's so much noise and involvement now in crypto. But when you're trading ICT, I think you're also trading a lot different, not only because you're trading crypto, but because you're not trading the 1 minute or the 5 minute. Like a lot of people that get introduced to ICT, they just see a lot of traders trading futures now because everybody got in with the 2022 mentorship, which ICT is primarily teaching you how to trade the low time frames on futures. So would you touch on what do you think about trading the lower time frames versus the higher time frames?
What's funny is I watched the 2022 mentorship because anytime ICT puts something out, I'm like, I'm going to watch it. He taught that already, but he taught it for the high time frame, right? Like you could use that same model, but instead of looking for that, low time frame, SFP, Judas swing, whatever you want to call it, you can look at that as a weekly model, right? And you're looking for the high of the week, and then you're trying to trade it down to the low of the week or the low of the week back to the high of the week. So a lot of what I think the good thing about the 2022 mentorship is it's like a compact, like this is all you need really. If you learn all these things, this is a system where at the end of it, you can literally go into the chart and start trading. But I think the mastery comes in realizing that these concepts are ubiquitous across time frames. They work on all the same time frames. And so something that works on the hourly and the 5 minute, why wouldn't it work on the daily and the hourly or the daily and the 15 minute, whatever it is? I tried the scalping thing, right? I think the most common trope is lower time frame, more trades, more money.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's what everyone thinks. Like, well, why would I trade on the hourly and take one trade a day when I can trade 10 trades before lunchtime?
Yeah.
But it works both ways. You can lose more money too, right? Just because you're taking more trades, it doesn't mean you're going to get more trades right or necessarily make more money. ICT has a very good video. I can't remember the name of it, where he talks about matching your trading style to your personality. He's like, are you a sprinter or are you a marathon runner? And that resonated with me because I tried the scalping thing and it was too stressful for me. Like I didn't like the idea of being like, hey, I got to be up at this exact time. I got to be locked in. If I miss my trade, like I'm out for the day. Whereas some people, they like that. They want to take all their trades in the first 3 hours of the session, and then the rest of the day is theirs. But there's so much going on in my life with crypto, having a personal brand and businesses. It just didn't vibe with me. As simple as that. And I think don't get discouraged if you don't like trading the 1 minute. I would suggest get off the 1 minute.
Yeah.
For most people, I think it takes a very special type of person to actually be able to do that consistently. By all means, go for it if you think it's for you. But I think people would have a lot more success if they zoomed out 2 or 3 time frames and they realized those same things they're looking for on the hourly and the 1 minute. You can look for those on the daily and the 4 hour, and you have a lot more free time. You have a lot less stress, a lot more chill.
Yeah, no, and kind of touching on what you said earlier, it's like the atom theory, right? Like less is more, right? And I think that's like the kind of the very broad lesson people need to learn about trading. A lot of people think, like you said, oh, I can get the low time frames, I can trade more setups, that means I'm going to make more. But most of the time, whenever people are learning, they lose more, so they end up losing more money. And everybody, like, whenever people ask me, like, oh, like, how many entries per week does this strategy get? How many entries a day? I'm like, why is that what you're worried about? Because shouldn't you be more worried about just making a good return, right?
Yeah.
And if you can get higher quality setups, less mental equity spent on them, right? Like less stress, less time on the charts, you're going to not only make more money, but you're going to build more of like a good system and good habits as a trader. Because like a lot of people come into trading and they just start on the 1 minute. That's crazy to me, because like you're going to build so many bad habits and just destroy your confidence. Because like you said, it's not easy to do that. It's just not.
No, you're gonna lose, and also initially for a while. And if you're trading on the 1 minute, like you're getting battered like every day.
Yeah.
So I think the other issue with so like you said, the trading industry I think is taking a good turn, because it's getting harder to fake it.
Yeah.
We're still seeing it. We won't name any names.
Yeah,
But very recently, we're seeing some pretty crazy shit going on Twitter. And there's sophistications to the grift, right? Like there's people who buy the broker and like listen to the common person. Like you're like, okay, that says it's a real MT4 account. That looks like a real withdrawal.
Says live.
He's got a Ferrari
Yeah.
and he's got a nice watch. Like he must know what he's doing. And there's people who are like just doing a very dodgy Photoshop job.
Yeah.
So it is, I think, turning the right way. But I think this is true with just not just trading social media, but social media in general. You got to realize like this is a snapshot of like the highlight reel for this person. Most people are not posting their losses, the grind, the journey. Some are, and it is getting better. We're seeing people, like you said, being more realistic about what it took to get here. But most people are like, here's the best trade I took this week and the big P&L number, not mentioning the 4 that were, stop outs. Here's me doing something super cool, renting a Lamborghini. And it's true in life too. If you wake up in the morning, you go on Instagram, like that's not a good way to start your day, because you're gonna be like, okay, this person's on vacation, this guy's at the beach, this guy's driving a supercar, and you're like getting up and going to work, or like it's raining out or whatever, you got to go to the gym. And I think trading social media is like that as well. It's very easy to have false expectations, because you go on there and you're like, oh, like everyone's right all the time.
Yeah.
They're catching every move, they're never wrong, they're doing all the awesome stuff, they're making way more money than me. And you're going to set yourself up for failure. I think personally, if you're learning and you're new, like don't be on Twitter, don't be in all these Discords. Like, yeah, you can have community and you can chat with other traders and stuff, but try and avoid some of that noise and, focus on the charts and try your best to set yourself up for success. Cause this is, if you want all that nice stuff that you see, you got to realize like this is a really hard industry to make it in. I don't think people realize that, like, the benefits that come with it, they come at a cost, and that's sleepless nights, and that's a lot of stress, that's a lot of failure and rejection, and I don't think most people are going to benefit from seeing everyone seemingly crush it.
Yeah.
I think it's going to set false expectations, because it takes a long time, and also I think it makes it so unrealistic. Like if you can consistently make like 2 hours a week, people are like, that's it, 2 hours? I'm like, are you kidding me? If you can make 2 hours a week consistently, you're going to be so rich. Like you don't even know. But again, you go online, you're like, well, my account's only $1,000, 2 hours, nothing. It's like, well, it's the wrong way to look at it. But
yeah, no, for sure. And I always tell people, like, you got to build the skill and the capital will come. Because now with prop firms, if you genuinely have the skill, capital really isn't that much of a problem, right?
No.
And the false expectations people get from seeing a lot of these like traders that'll post like 10R trades or 20R trades. Like you said, it's just people that come in and they're kind of very green to the industry, and they see that and they think, oh, this must be legit. He has a before and after. Well, what people like, even if somebody calls a trade out like that, I guarantee most of the time they're not holding that trade, because the mental bandwidth that takes is not just, oh yeah, put a 20R trade, I'm going to make 20% of my account on one trade. And people think that that's realistic, and they just try to go out there and do that. And when they can't do it, they're thinking, oh, like, what am I doing wrong? I'm not, meeting the standards of my mentor, right? And then it becomes like a vicious cycle of just.
I would recommend go and try and take like a 50 lot Euro USD trade with a 5 pit stop on the 1 minute. Go do it and see what happens. I don't think it's going to work out the way that you think it will.
Yeah. And people get upset when they do that. And then they're like, oh, had slippage. Oh, I had this and that. And what a lot of people don't understand too is there are some brokers that some props use that they're operating off of a live simulated condition, meaning that whenever somebody's executing a trade, it's actually reading the real order book as if it was a real trade. And guess what? If there's not enough of, there's not enough for sale where you're trying to go long or buy, you're going to get filled at different prices, right? And people don't get that. And whenever you're operating with, $500 a pip and you're on a funded account where you have daily drawdown or even max drawdown you're worrying about, it's not practical, right? Like I don't see any very highly profitable traders that I know they're profitable, right? Trading like that, right? Most of the time they're trading with a little bit more of a wide stop. And yeah, they might go heavy, but they're giving themselves enough room to account for all that.
I don't know anyone who's trading real big size who's trading on the 1 minute. I'm sure there's a few people out there and stuff, but one of the differences between crypto and FX is we get all of that tier 2 data. If you go on any centralized exchange, you see the order book. Yeah. Right. So you might see the price, and it's like, okay, if I'm buying 1 Bitcoin, maybe I get filled at that price. But if I'm buying 50, you got to now start going down and say, where is the liquidity, right? Is there enough at that price level? Probably not. And that information isn't shared with you in FX. And so I think it's something, like you said, people don't really understand. And the number one thing people love to complain about is slippage. It's like, well, like the price you see is not necessarily the price you get. Yeah. And if it is, then you got to be questioning, where is that data coming from? Like, is it some kind of shitty CFD where they're just filling you? It's like, okay, well then they're manufacturing all aspects of that trade environment. You got some other problems to worry about. Slippage is normal. And I think a good prop firm is one that if your strategy works with them, it will work in the real environment as well. Yeah. Whereas if you're trading at a prop firm where there's no slippage and no fees and no commissions and all this stuff, it's like, okay, go and try and replicate your strategy where you're scalping super low time frame in and out of a bunch of trades with huge size in a live account. It's not going to work, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing that people don't even think about. So whenever you're getting funded and you're going after prop firms, I don't think the goal should just be to forever only have prop firms. Like you should be compounding that into your personal account or whatever you're doing. Maybe you're not trading the same way or as aggressive, but you need to get used to what the real world of trading is, right? And if you just stay on a prop firm that's just super simulated, it's giving you perfect executions. So there are some prop firms that use brokers that are in the simulated environment, so they do that. But like you said, then you have like slippage bands, what everybody talks about, or different kind of plugins people will use to like manipulate stuff. Yeah. So, but now speaking of prop firms, you recently started one of the only prop firms that is
Breakout Prop.
Yeah, that is focused on crypto, which I think is cool because there are some prop firms, like prop firms offer crypto, but do they really? It's just I'm going to trade with a $40 spread. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then you have to close it at the end of the day, like get real.
Yeah. You know I mean, that's why I started it. Cause I traded FTMO early on, right? I thought I knew what I was doing. I was undercapitalized. Prop firms are leverage, really. When you think about it, the risk reward is not how big your account is and you're risking 2%. It's how many challenges do I have to buy to get to a payout? Yep. That's the math you have to be doing. And it's a form of leverage. And, like you said, I think it's a means to an end. You need to be using those payouts to build up that personal account where there are no daily drawdowns, there's no risk limits, there's no profit split, but they're an amazing tool. And I think that they're one that should absolutely be taken advantage of, especially with all the prop guys you see on Twitter. Like the proof is in the model there. Like you can make money leveraging these firms if you know what you're doing. And I had, kind of started following a couple of the other kind of, more prominent traders who were interacting with prop. I know you work with prop firms on the future side, and there's guys, I was like, oh, I used to trade FTMO. Yeah. I'm like, why hasn't someone done this for crypto? Was kind of the aha moment. And I was like, okay, well, let me see. So I signed up to all these firms, and I'm like, okay, like you said, $20 spread on Bitcoin, and that's at like the best of times. The coins that are offered are old ones from 2017. I'm like, this isn't real crypto. This is just kind of an add-on, right? Like these are a prop firm, and we also can let you trade a few coins. Yeah. So I was like, how do I solve this puzzle? Because I think this is something useful for traders, right? I think that there's kind of two sects in crypto. There's the investors, and then there's actual traders.
Big difference. Too.
Huge difference, because investors are like, it's going up. Like, I'm just buying. They're basically like a long only book, right?
Yeah,
But like,
yeah.
I'm just going to buy and
Continue to buy.
In reality, usually if they're patient enough, they will make money, right?
They make the most money.
Yeah,
I think
they end
make
up
the
making
most
more money than most. But like, there are people who trade like me, you know, and I usually underperform in a bull market relative to a lot of the like hodlers or the blind believers who are like, I'm just buying, it's going to 200K. But I'll keep more of my money when things turn around. And that's what got me popular in the first place, was like, yeah, in 2017, like I shorted, and everyone's like, really? Why are you shorting? I was like, because this looks done. And I was one of the few people who was bearish the entire way down. And yeah, in the most recent bull run of 70K, I had a ton of friends who were like this, and I'm kind of more, you know, but when the market crashed, those same people were calling me because they're illiquid now, and they're like, hey man, like, you know, can you help me out? So I know for traders, like crypto is an amazing market. It's so volatile. There's so many opportunities. It's 24/7. There's so much game theory that you can involve with it as well, with new coin launches acting very similar to like stocks, penny stocks, and IPOs. We call them ICOs, right? Initial coin offerings. And there's just so much going on there. I was like, okay, like trading in crypto is getting way more popular. You know, the proof was in my brand. I blew up as, I wasn't shilling the next 100x, buy this, you're going to make $1 million. I wasn't starting a token. I wasn't, you know, scamming people with anything like that. I was a trader. I was teaching people how to trade. I just happened to do it in crypto. And when my brand got popular, and then I kind of saw the proliferation of prop, I'm like, oh, this would be a pretty natural progression. Like, why doesn't this exist? So we created Breakout Prop, and the main difference we have between other prop firms is we source our liquidity from a centralized exchange. So like you said, it's that live simulated environment. Even though it's a simulated environment, when you enter an order, we look at we match with the real order book. So that slippage you get is real slippage, verifiably. Like, you can't just enter 100 Bitcoin long and expect to get filled at the exact price you want. It's going to give you a realistic fill. We have fees that are the exact same as a centralized exchange, because the cost of trading is something you have to include in your calculation of your system and your profitability, right? Like, you might have a system where you take 100 trades a day. It's like, well, that could get expensive if each of these trades is 0.5R or 1R. So we want to build that. So that's what we did. We're a month in. I think we're off to a great start. So if you're looking to trade prop, the benefits of prop, I think we're the best place to do it for crypto. We're going all in on that crypto kind of focus. I think that's our edge. That's my audience. And I think it's going to grow. I think you're going to see other firms pop up. I wouldn't be surprised doing crypto only for prop, but you know, we're the first ones. Trader Mayne's behind us. That's the one you got to use.
Hell yeah, man. And I think that alone is a huge benefit, because you've been through it, right? You know exactly what somebody needs in terms of like crypto and prop firms. You traded both sides, you saw a void and you filled it. And that's like the story for, I think, a lot of really successful businesses, is there's a person that is a consumer that understands the full model and says like, hey, this is how this could be better, and then actually goes and does it. So super awesome, man. You know, another thing too that's different about you guys, or correct me, you guys trade like on a different UI, right? It's not like MetaTrader, or they have MetaTrader for the...
So we have MetaTrader, but if you tried to get a regular crypto native to use MetaTrader, they'd be like, is this like Windows 95?
Dude, that's how I was when I first started.
Because it hasn't been updated since like the 90s. So I wanted to get something that was more familiar. And so we are working with a company where we effectively created our own dashboard and user interface, because I wanted to replicate basically a centralized exchange UI. So if you're on Binance or Bybit, somewhere where crypto trader is comfortable, it's going to feel the same. You know, the charting is more modern. The tools that are on there are more modern, because MT4, MT5, like, I don't know about you, but I do all of my Forex execution on my phone. I can't use that. I hate the desktop app.
I'm not using the desktop. Absolutely not.
It's so antiquated. It's so old. Or TradingView, right? You use some sort of Frankenstein TradingView solution where you have social trades connected to a demo account on Oanda, which then copy trades.
And you have to account for like the differences. There's like little...
And there's definitely an education of the customer that has to happen on the crypto prop side. like I said, crypto Twitter is full of skeptics.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks everything's a scam, right?
Yeah,
like,
because they've been scammed.
Yeah, because most things are a scam.
Yeah.
I've been scammed by every big crypto exchange that's out there, which is unfortunate. It sucks, and it does hurt our reputation, I think, in the public eye. But skepticism is fine. You know, the ethos of crypto is like, don't trust, verify. So there has to be an education of the customer of like why prop isn't a scam. People say, well, 5% only daily drawdown and only 8% overall or whatever it is. And I'm like, yeah, but there's reasons for this. And, you know, this is a proven model. But I wanted to make it as easy of a transition as possible. If I had to tell people like, hey, there's all these risk rules, and by the way, you got to trade on this old ass system, I don't think it was going to work. Another thing we got coming out, hopefully for the end of Q1, is we'll have direct TradingView integration.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so that'll be pretty cool. You'll be able to trade directly on TradingView.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah, so you
That's
put your
huge.
RR tool up there, and we're partnered with Bybit. They're like the number 2 centralized exchange in the world. They're gaining more market share because Binance is obviously, you know, recently had some troubles. And we're partnered directly with them. So you can pull up the Bybit chart, and that's going to be the chart that you're trading with us. And soon you're going to be able to trade right on that TradingView chart as well.
And that's sick, man, because that's another thing with FX is like, I'll have people ask me like, hey, like I set my limit on the, you know, my TradingView chart and it didn't hit. I'm like, bro, you gotta come on now. Like, it's not the same levels because Forex, there's 100 different Forex charts on TradingView. You know, you got to use the one, like you can use the same structure, but then you got to go on MetaTrader, get the levels, you know, place your limits if you're trading limits and, you know, whatever. But yeah, that's actually awesome, dude. Because I think even though, okay, so I started trading crypto. That is where I started. Crypto futures was like the first leveraged trading instrument I used. And there's nothing, in my opinion, and I don't know, maybe I'm biased because that's where I started, but that beats that AI, or I mean not AI, UI. You know what I mean? It's just so clean. Like, oh, I know exactly, you know, the leverage. I don't know. It's clean. Like a MetaTrader, like you said, when you first use it, it's like prehistoric.
But you got to like, how do you even figure out your position size on MetaTrader? You got to download like a third-party tool and like implement the indicator just so you can get your position size and to show up on the screen. Whereas most crypto exchanges, it's got a calculator built in. The order book is there. Like, it's just smooth and clean. And I know something crypto people care about is the UI, and they will actually forego a better trading platform and conditions for one with a better UI. Back in the day, there's an exchange you might have used at BitMEX. And
I never did. I know, I'm aware of it. But
yeah, so BitMEX used to be the number 1 exchange for derivatives. You know, they were like the first one to do these perpetual swaps and stuff like that. And they blew it up really. And they had a very aggressive kind of liquidation calculator. They had this insurance fund, which held a massive amount of Bitcoin, which basically got funded by people getting liquidated on their platform. But the UI was the best. So like you almost didn't care because you're like, yeah, but it's the best experience. So we wanted to kind of cross that bridge. I think TradingView will be kind of the final piece to that puzzle where it's like, listen, like this is where you're doing all your trading anyways. You might as well enter your trades here too.
That's awesome, man. I'm trying to think. I traded on Binance first. Was the first place that I traded derivatives.
RIP to CZ, man.
Yeah,
I know,
it's crazy, man. Yeah,
right. A good run.
It's crazy. The crypto
He's from
space.
where I'm from, actually. He's from Vancouver.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, it seems like I feel like everybody. I'm learning. Like we were talking the other night on the boat. There's so many people that I didn't know were from Canada that are from Canada.
Yeah, they all end up down here,
right?
But they all started in Canada.
Yeah, man. So, you know, speaking of, I know it's like a touchy subject or a hard one, but I know you said you got scammed a lot. So a lot of people, I don't know. I mean, I know your audience knows, but like you got hammered by FTX, bro. Yeah,
me and many other people. You know, so I funnily enough, I lost money on Mt. Gox. I lost money on,
you've
been
around for everyone.
5.5 Bitcoin on Mt. Gox. But at the time, like that was $5,000.
Right.
So I didn't think of it, you know, the same. 5 Bitcoin now is $300,000.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Right. So like I didn't even file my bankruptcy claim for Mt. Gox because it came and it was all in Mandarin. And I like took it to a lawyer and he's like, it's going to cost you more to get me to translate this and read it than you're going to get back. So I was like, whatever. But would have been nice now in hindsight. And I lost money on Quadriga, which was another exchange where the guy like faked his own death and moved to Dubai. Sorry.
Did he get caught?
Well, he's in Dubai though.
Oh,
that's like scammers paradise for all the Dubai boys out there. Like, there's no extradition, right?
Damn.
But yeah, he basically bought like a fake death certificate, faked his own death, and they're like, oh, the guy with all the private keys, with all the user funds, is dead. Like, there's nothing we can do.
Party's over.
And then he got caught doing like another scam. I didn't lose as much there, but FTX was one that hurt a lot. I think in hindsight, there's a saying in crypto, it's not your keys, it's not your coins.
Yeah.
So unless you have the coins on a wallet that you control, like a ledger, a hardware wallet, a hot wallet, but like you own it, that's your money. It's not yours, right? Like when you're on a centralized exchange, it's no different than using a broker. It's counterparty risk, right? Like, and that's the actual use of leverage that most people don't understand. The point of leverage is I can open a 100K position with 10x leverage by only having 10K on that broker instead of having to keep 100K. The mistake most people make is they use leverage to just open bigger positions and with more money than they should. But I should have known better. It was the heat of a bull run, right? I mean, Sam was on, fuck you, Sam, by the way, rotten prison. He was on Forbes, like 30 under 30.
Hell, they had the FTX Arena down the street.
Yeah, FTX Arena. He's doing Super Bowl commercials with Tom Brady.
Oh my God, those are so bad looking back.
To be honest with you, going back to our UI thing, it was the best exchange to trade on, hands down.
Yeah.
It had the best UI. It had this collateralization software or system that basically you could have any coin on there and use that as collateral to leverage trade.
Oh, they had a good system for
and
that.
Whereas other exchanges, you had to hold Bitcoin and that would be the collateral because the underlying asset's so volatile. And yeah, there's part of me being like, how do they calculate my margin requirements when all of these coins I hold are changing in value so much, 10% a day? It's like, it turns out they weren't.
Yeah,
it
they're
was just all
collateralizing
bullshit. Yeah, they were just stealing my money.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was the best exchange to use. And another thing that's frustrating is like if you look at the cap table of FTX, it is like some of the biggest VCs and funds,
political people in it and everything.
in the world. And you're like, I assume they did their due diligence. Like, why do I have to do it when you've got like the biggest funds in the world investing millions of dollars into this company? It's got to be, legit. And, unfortunately, I had more money on there than I should have. And funnily enough, my fiance and I were headed to Dubai. And I'd heard rumblings that like, there's some stuff going on. The market was also in a bad way. Like back in November, it was 20K down from the 70K high. Basically a bank run happened. Like that's effectively what happened is they were stealing customer funds to cover up a hole in the hedge fund. And I'm 100% confident that if that bank run never would have happened, they'd still be here because the exchange was making so much money. It's the hedge fund that lost the money. It wasn't the exchange. And based on the bankruptcy process right now, like I'm getting offers for 75 cents on the dollar right now. So they're going to recover the majority of it, which is great. Still annoying that they stole it from me at the bottom. But if you're in crypto, you got to realize counterparty risk is a real thing. If your money is anywhere but a wallet that you control, it's not yours. But we made it all back and then some, thank goodness. But definitely a very tough lesson to learn. And I think something that's a little unique to crypto is it's like the Wild West, man. It's like the 80s in New York. It's like the Wolf of Wall Street. Like there's not really, as much as people are like, hey, crypto's anti-bank, anti-government, all these things. Like in some instances, regulation is not a bad thing. There needs to be some protections for the consumer. I do think we need more people who are crypto native in positions to lobby and consult with the government to make these regulations. Because right now we have a bunch of people who don't know anything about crypto being like, FTX is bad. So if you live in Canada or US, basically you can't use anything now. They're just like broad stroke, wipe it all out. I don't think that's the solution. There is a middle ground, but when there's little to no regulation, this kind of stuff can unfortunately happen.
Yeah. And how much exactly did you lose in the FTX?
I won't go into the exact
figure, but it was
but it was more than 7 figures. Which is very painful to say out loud. Don't risk money that you can't afford to lose, I guess.
Hey, but good news, like you said, you've been killing it, bro. I mean, you're probably one of the best traders I know out there that I'm seeing actually like post everything, being transparent. So like you said, you've made it all back. And speaking of trading, I don't know, I think everybody would love to see like just a little rundown of your strategy.
For sure.
So,
all right, let's see. White background? Are you crazy?
I know, right? My eyes are just screaming. Dude, I used to have the dark background. I probably should change to it because there are some days, I'm not even kidding. So like I had my my background for the for everything, like my the system OS or whatever was white, and I literally would work like when I was creating the program, like I would work for like 10 hours a day, dude, on it.
Oh, dude.
And I would leave my
Eyes
computer.
bleeding.
They would literally be burning. Bro.
Yeah.
I'm not exaggerating. Like they would physically.
It would hurt to like blink.
Yeah, and like when you look away, I was like, bro, you're like a fucking hermit. And you're just burning your eyes.
First of all, I'll put everyone on a little bit of game when it comes to trading crypto. The 12-hour chart is your friend.
Yeah.
That's the real sauce. What is the 12-hour chart? It's 2 candles equals 1 daily candle. I don't know why, but I don't even know who put me on the 12-hour chart first, but I've just had mad success trading the 12-hour chart. So my system is very, very simple. I teach my system every week in live streams.
Links in the description.
Yeah, links in the description. You want to join the Haven, that's where I go into real detail. So I do have a private community that I'm part of called the Haven, where if you want access to me, you want like a complete detailed review of your trades I'm in, things like that. I do all that there. But I also do weekly free YouTube streams. I got like 40 some odd thousand followers on YouTube. I've been doing a stream every Monday for 5 years.
Damn.
Like I've got 700 odd videos, and if you're willing to put the work in and go watch those streams, I share my system. I'm not trying to hide anything, being like, oh, by the way, as soon as I turn my screen off, people always ask me, what indicators are you using? I'm like, I'm showing it to you.
What's the
like,
secret?
Yeah, it's not like I turn the stream off. I'm like, thank God that's over, and I flick on all these indicators. It's like I'm showing you how to do it. Problem is you're just not doing it.
Yeah.
So my system is very simple. And obviously I have a variety of different concepts and systems that I use. But what I'll share with you here is kind of one of the main ones I use to trade crypto, and it's fire. It's 2 time frames. I use the 12-hour basically for my market structure and my kind of points of interest, high time frame analysis. And then the H1 is my entry time frame. I keep it super simple. The idea with this system when I put it together is I want to be able to teach it to someone. When you get better at trading, and especially if you're doing ICT stuff, you can start to blend concepts. Oh, when do you use a breaker versus a order block versus a fair value gap, things like that. I was like, okay, this is just going to be like bare bones. I can teach this to someone like, in a couple of weeks, and then they can go in there with a literal checklist of like, this is exactly all the things that need to happen for me to take the trade.
That's super important to have that too. Like I think there's a saying in the world of business, it's just if you don't understand your systems and your process, then, or if you can't explain your systems and your process, then you don't understand it.
Can you write it on a napkin? Or is it real? And the other thing, people say the word system all the time. It's because it's systematized, right? It's systematic. How do you know what you're doing works if you can't replicate it the same way every time? So if you're going to take 1,000 trades of backtest data, but for the first 500 you're doing it one way, like the free throw example, and then the second 500 you're doing it with your left hand, that 1,000 trade data set is useless, right? So if you have something that's pretty mechanical, and then over 1,000, 10,000 trades, okay, I've got a 45% win rate, aiming for 2R. Now when you're in that 3 or 4 trade losing streak, it's okay, right? Because the data, it smooths out over that long period of time. But if you're changing what you're doing halfway through, maybe that losing streak becomes 10 trades or whatever, and then it becomes too much. So I wanted this to be super simple. So I primarily am looking for a 12-hour range. I'm not doing anything complex. I'm looking for a swing low and a swing high. I'll mark that out on the chart. And depending on what orientation those are in, I'm either bullish or bearish, right? So if we just made a low to a high, it's a bullish range. I'm looking to long some sort of retracement into the lower part of that range. If we've made a high to a low, I'm looking to then short a retracement into the upper part of that range. So I mark out my range on the 12-hour chart. And then I'm primarily looking for 12-hour points of interest. I mainly just stick with order blocks. You can use breakers, you can use fair value gaps, but from the very basic level, I look for an order block, and then I'm looking for price to effectively retest that order block, and then I'm looking for my entry pattern, whatever you want to call it, on the hourly.
The classic market structure shift.
And it's as simple as that. So I draw this on every single one of my videos, and people are like, what is this? I'm like, this is the money. Okay, it's a little goofy looking W, and it's like a low gets taken out, the high that creates that low gets taken out, and I'm literally buying the retest.
So you use the has to be the high. So like I know some people like, okay, there's two types of market structure shifts. There'll be like the high that creates the low, or I mean, that takes the last little bit of liquidity, right? And then that high has to get taken. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, cool. So then it's not just any high in between. It's actually,
No, I mean,
that's probably an important part of the strategy that a lot of people would mess up.
Yeah. And you can get, once you understand the basics of it, I tell people you can get funnier with it, because if that high that made the SFP or the liquidity grab is really far away, okay, there's other things you can do. Maybe you're looking for an intermediate high, maybe you're looking for an inverted fair value. Now we're getting way too deep in the sauce, and I'm like, don't worry about all that. There's enough money just here,
man,
because not only does this work on Bitcoin, it works on Ethereum, Cardano, like
Euro, USD, everything.
Yeah, there's so many. I'm like, rather than trying to force your setup on a chart, maybe look at a different chart. Right? Where that high is actually really close here and the RR makes sense. It's super easy.
And that's the benefit of crypto, is that, like, you know, with FX, it's like really you're trading one chart. Even if you trade EU and GU, you're basically trading whichever one is more strong with your bias. But, you know, if there's not a good setup on one, a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times there's not going to be a good setup on the other, right? And with crypto, you know, you have, you know, especially trading the higher time frames, you have, you know, so many different options that you can pick from. I need your watch list, by the way, because like I have a boomer watch list.
Don't
it's
worry.
like
Once I'll send you the invoice for it.
So
we'll look at
with the breakout account though, right?
Yes,
the max allocation.
Of course. So we'll look at your. It's always so funny using someone else's trading.
Dude, it's like you're sitting in their car. You're gonna move the seat around.
Driving a car I've never driven before. Yeah. So we'll look at Bitcoin here. So this is a very basic long that I took. Already TP'd it literally last night, and we're gonna kind of walk it down from the 12-hour down. So starting at the 12-hour, I think, you know, anyone could tell you with, you know, a set of eyes that we're in an uptrend. So we're gonna favor longs over shorts. So in our trading range that we're in, I'm effectively looking for price to come into the lower 1/3 of the range, but really anywhere below the middle. So I'll pull a fib from the low to the high, and I will mark the 50% line. And I'll say, okay, if I'm looking for longs, I want to see it retrace, ideally into some sort of bullish order block or bullish point of interest, whether it's a break or an FVG. That's later. For now, we're just going to focus on order blocks. So I will draw out my fib. I will mark the 50% line. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to mark out my order block. Now there's levels to the setup in terms of how high I would kind of rate it. Everyone's kind of got like their, I don't know, like a grading scale.
Right.
Like it's an A plus.
Yeah.
So for me, the A plus setup is going to be lower part of the range within a 12-hour order block, and you get some sort of 12-hour liquidity run.
Okay.
That's
so into
like
the order block.
That's a big, that's the elite of the elite. You get a 12-hour run. The kind of B tier setup, which is still good, is going to be a 1-hour liquidity grab within that 12-hour order block without the 12-hour sweep. So in this instance, we have as you can see here, guys, there's your low, there's your high. I'm just kind of doing this a little messy, but you can get the picture. And then we have a 12-hour low form right above the order block. So ICT calls that inducement, engineered liquidity. There's a bazillion names for it, but basically that to me is, okay, I'm marking that low out and I'm just waiting for that thing to get run. And oftentimes you'll see that low get placed and the market likes to kind of tease you. It's like, oh, that came so close to where I wanted to enter, and then start trading away. And that is to induce people into longing. 100% I believe that. Like, people are now longing, thinking they missed the move, right? They're going to chase it, and then what does it do? It comes back exactly where they wanted it to go anyways. They're pissed off, and then the real move occurs. Yep. So once you have your range and stuff marked out like this, really what you're looking for is the fractal that I've drawn out here. You're looking for this to play out on the low time frame, because the assumption is if the 12 hours in an uptrend, right, I'm waiting for that down leg on the 12 hour to flip up, right? And I'm trying to time that. And so usually that trend getting realigned, it's going to make itself apparent on the low time frame first. And that's what the market structure shift is. It's that clue. It's like, okay, the 12 hour is going down, but the 12 hour is still in an uptrend. So that couple of down candles on the H12 are going to become green candles soon on the H12. How can I pinpoint that moment and get back in sync with that high time frame trend or order flow, whatever you want to call it? So that fractal that I've drawn out here, I'm looking for that to play out on the low time frame. So once we come in, we sweep that low. You can see I marked it with the dotted line here. We're going to go in and we're going to look for that exact moment that happened. And I'm going to look for that exact fractal. Everyone's like, it seems so simple. I'm like, it is, but you're still going to mess it up.
Yeah.
So you have the 12-hour low here. You see it get taken out. I mark out the high that ran that low. And then I mark out the entire zone. And the reason I do it is because it's way easier to explain people that the entire box is basically your entry. But really what you're doing is you're marking out the breaker, right? So you're marking out in this instance, it's a bullish breaker because it's an up move that took out a low. So I'm marking out that bullish breaker and I'm waiting for price to then break market structure to the upside and then retest that breaker. And that's the entry. There's going to be a fair value gap down here. There's going to be an order block down here. There's going to be you're going to learn as you get more comfortable, all these PD arrays kind of overlap with each other. This is just a super easy, basic way to explain it. I've got my 12-hour order block. I've got my 12-hour SFP. I'm now going down to the hourly. I'm finding the 1-hour breaker that caused that 12-hour SFP. I mark out the entire thing. So I take the breaker candle and I take it all the way down to the SFP low. And the breaker is the entry and the SFP low is the stop.
I like that because it gives a wide enough stop where you're not stressed
so
and you're not,
You could, and again, what's the number one thing I get asked? Oh, well, could I have my stop at the breaker?
Of course. Everyone wants more. Could. They always want more.
Crypto, I find it respects kind of these PD arrays, but it is more volatile.
Yeah.
So I've had enough instances where I've had my stop like right at the edge of a order block or a breaker and I've gone stopped out, whether it be from spread or it just because there's so much leverage in the system, they'll blow it out past a level just a little bit more and then the close will be above the level. Where I'm like, I would just rather, because if it closes below, if we go below the SFP, then I'm for sure wrong.
Right.
It can go below the breaker and still close nicely and you're still not wrong. So I like that bit of a looser stop. And so that's literally it. I draw out that breaker zone. I put my entry at the breaker. I put my stop below the SFP and I aim for 2R. That's what I have everyone kind of do their math on. You can also mark out this level here. So that would be your market structure shift. So when I'm looking for the market structure shift, it's a 3 candle swing that I use. So you need to see a high with a lower high on each side. So that's right here. So this order does not get put on until we break market structure or market structure shift that occurs here. And then there's your retest. And this was a perfect entry. There's 0 drawdown, no heat. You had very obvious, highs to the left. And one of the things I love about this system is it combines a bunch of kind of advanced ICT concepts, but it takes out all the legwork.
Right.
Because when I'm longing in the lower part of the range in a 12-hour order block after a liquidity run, okay, I'm in discount. Where am I targeting? What's my directional bias for this setup? Well, if I'm in the lower part of a bullish 12-hour range, I'm looking for the other side of that range, right? The bullish side of that range to the highs. So instead of having to go on your chart and mark out all your external range liquidity, internal range liquidity, it's like if I'm in a bullish range and I'm in the lower part of the range, I'm looking for longs. It kind of takes out that guesswork and that target setting and all that stuff. So this trade ended up going for 5R. But again, I aim for 2R. That's what I do all my statistics on when I share my strategy in my groups and stuff like that. I'm like, 2R, you only need to be right 33% of the time to break even.
Exactly.
You can do that. That's a very attainable target. And then anything beyond that is gravy.
Yeah.
There's tons of ways you can refine this setup. You can go within the hourly kind of breaker. You can look for an M15 SFP within there. And then
that's where people mess up, I feel like.
Yeah,
too,
and you can zoom into the M15 and you can find the exact same pattern repeat and you can take it there. You can find another H1 sweep and, double down. I tell people this is enough to create an entire system. And there's enough assets out there that you can find a trade basically every day.
Yeah.
Nor should you even need to trade every day, but you can. This is some game right here. I share this every week on YouTube. People are still baffled by it. They still don't understand. But it's like ICT says, every day, it don't stop. I share this for Bitcoin. I do the same setups for gold, silver, the S&P 500, 2 time frames, very basic rule set, super mechanical. And if you put the time in, this will pay you.
Yeah.
And if you're able to do it consistently and across enough assets, like you can make an entire career trading just this strategy. Do I have other strategies? Of course. Do I do things a little bit differently sometimes? Yeah. But if you're a beginner, like you said, simplicity is what's going to scale, and that's the key. And you can see that here. And then if you want to level it up, now that we've had that 12-hour move, well, what do you have now? Now you have a 12-hour breaker that's just formed off that same SFP. So you can now say, okay, that SFP that I took that original trade on, I now have a 12-hour breaker here that formed that SFP. So I already got on the hourly, I already got in, and I got paid. Now I have a 12-hour breaker, I have a new range, I have a 12-hour market structure shift. So guess what? If it comes back to that breaker, I'm banging it again.
There we go.
Rinse, repeat. You're going to see this setup in Bitcoin at least one setup a week is kind of what I see. When the market is hot like it is right now, you get a lot of people who are impatient, right? They're like, this moves too slow. I'm like, okay, well then use the exact same thing that I just showed you, but use the H4 and the M15.
Yeah, and that's what that's kind of the way I trade crypto. Or I'll do the daily and the H1. That's what I've been doing more recently. But yeah, it's pretty similar to the way I trade crypto. I trade a little different whenever I'm trading futures. But yeah, I love that, man. And touching on what you were saying, like, you know, about refining it, I would argue like people shouldn't want to refine it, because most of the time, the people that want to refine it so bad are the people that aren't even making money yet. So I'm like, why are you trying to be more greedy? Because essentially that's what, when you start to add more and more time frames, like you get these people, there's a lot of courses, I'm not going to name them, but that they kind of like...
Name names.
Yeah, Photon is a big one. I'll name it. Photon is a big one, right?
We need more slander on this podcast.
Yeah, more slander is required. No, but that's one, that they'll have it where, you know, they sell you this dream of having, you know, a daily time frame down to a 4-hour, down to a 15-minute, down to a 1 minute, and then you got 30, 40R. That is not practical. It's just not. Like nobody, I'm not gonna say nobody. There's someone out there doing any strategy, right? But I think to sell that dream to a new trader especially, it's just gonna ruin their trading for a long time. Like I know that happened for me, right? You know what I mean? Not with Photon, but just with in general, like kind of bad expectations. It's so detrimental to any new trader to always looking, you know, trying to minimize or maximize, you know, minimize all the stop losses, maximize the profits. And, you know, the first thing you should worry about when you're operating in an industry that 90% of people don't make money is just how can I just keep my money, right? If you can learn to keep your money and not do dumb shit, you're going to end up, okay, now you start to learn the nuance of things. Now you start to see, like you said, are you a sprinter or a marathon runner? What works best for you? I think at the beginning, everybody should start on the high time frames. I can't tell you how many people that I've worked with that they're just like, oh, I'm struggling. Like I'm seeing too many opportunities. Trading stressful. I'm like, what time frame are you on? Oh, I'm on the 1 minute.
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe how about use the 15 minute as your new 1 minute?
Yeah.
I've very rarely had someone that actually listened to that, because most people won't listen, but that actually listen to that, not come back and say, oh my God, night and day difference. Trading is just so much different now, because good trading is really understanding how to spot an opportunity. That's the first part. And like you said, people are going to watch that and they're still going to maybe try to take it, and they might get a good setup. But then what's going to happen in the meantime when they're waiting for the next setup? They're going to start chopping away, and then, oh, this doesn't work. Why doesn't it work for me? And it's just, you know, trading is more of a mental game than anything. Like the technical analysis side of things it's honestly not that hard, right? Like I believe genuinely you could take somebody like, as long as they're technologically competent at least a little bit, you could say maybe 4 to 6 hours to show them what they actually needed to know. But of course, they're not going to be able to take that and go be successful, because you have to learn the struggles of being patient, being disciplined, you know, kind of being aware of your emotions. That is what trading is really about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I feel like the moment before you find profitability, I find there's two things. One is I was starting to break even a lot, right? Where I was making some money and then I'd give some back and make some money. And then I found myself kind of being almost perfectly wrong for a period of time, where like I knew exactly what was going to happen, but like I would just like fuck it up. And then I started to become profitable. Trading, especially in crypto, and this is true in Forex too, like you are not consistently making money the entire year. There's going to be periods of time where you're hot, what you're doing is working, And you're going to probably make the lion's share of your money in crypto. It's so obvious, like when it's easy mode, like right now, you're going to make the most money. And then when things are no longer on easy mode, most people would be better off not trading at all. Some of my richest crypto buddies are long only. They don't, when the bear market comes, they're just out. They're just chilling and they're living the dream, dude. Meanwhile, I'm trying to short the thing on the whole way down. But at least for me, like I have the ability to trade both directions and I'm not trying to long it all the way down. That's the thing. They give back all the money that they made during easy mode. And listen, so I have an indicator. There's a free version. It's called IMG indicator. So that strategy I just showed you, it will mark the range for you and it will mark the order block. And people are like, well, can't you code your entire strategy? I'm like, I can, but even doing that, because that strategy specifically is so mechanical where it's like there's just these few data points you need. When you're in the actual trade and you're staring at that P&L, it doesn't matter if an indicator told you to long here, told you to put your stop here and TP there. That doesn't stop you from manually closing it early, oversizing and then being down a little bit, freaking out and then closing it, or it going to TP and you say, well, it's going higher and you don't close.
That's crypto, man. People do, and I've been a victim in the past, because you always remember, the last time it went 5R, but you got to understand, like you were saying earlier, like you had that Bitcoin long and it went however many R. That's great, cool, whatever. I know that over time, sticking to your guns of what works is going to pay you more over time.
Once the trade's over, I no longer care what happens.
What's up, guys? I'm happy to have you on the Market Moguls Podcast, and I wanted to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by TRADEZELLA. TRADEZELLA is the all-in-one trading software that all traders should have. It covers everything from journaling to backtesting. You can even track all of your KPIs, like your average risk to reward, your average profit per trade, and many other important data points that every trader should know. After all, if you're not treating trading like a business, then it probably will not pay you like one will. If you want to try TRADEZELLA today, you can get a 15% discount by using the code CASPER15 at the link in the description.
It's very hard in crypto because you want prices to go up. If you own spot, it's kind of a different game. And I actually find it way harder. I tell people, like, the nice thing about Forex is like Friday, close your computer. Your account balance is the same as when you closed your computer
so hard
when you open it Monday. Like,
you
can have a weekend here where you had 10 Bitcoin and it was worth 100K. And then on Monday, that 10 Bitcoin is worth 50K, right? So there is a different aspect there that you got to kind of deal with. But early on, one piece of advice I always give people is put your 3 orders in at the same time and don't touch them. So when you're first beginning, you enter, you put your stop on, you put your take profit on, and until it hits your stop or take profit, you do nothing. Because the amount of times you are going to mess it up, exiting early, leaving it on too long, letting it go past where your stop should have been, hoping it's going to bounce back. You're going to lose more money doing that than you're going to make by letting that winner run or cutting that trade early. Those are skills that I think come later in the game. I think early on, be as mechanical and systematic as possible, because the hardest part, like we said, is psychology. It's the human element. That's the part that takes the most time to develop. And so the least amount of room you allow for human error, the better. Because if you are doing things that are subjective, you're going to mess it up. That's why paper trading, I'm all for paper trading to an extent. First of all, the main problem with paper trading, people open up $1 million account. I'm like, well, is that how much money you have?
For real.
Because you're going to be very disappointed when your real account's got $1,000. And a pip is, $1 instead of, 10,000.
10 gazillions.
And the other issue is it's not real. Right?
Yeah.
And that's a super common trope with crypto too, is they don't feel like it's real money. And I'm like, I know it feels like numbers on a screen and it's Bitcoin. It's like, that's real money. Like, you might think it's not because you've made so much recently buying a coin about a frog, but guess what? That coin doesn't pay your rent. The money you make on it pays your bills, pays your rent. So it's real. You got to treat it as real, and you can't replicate the feeling of having real money on the line. And that's I would rather you trade with $1,000 than a 100K paper trade account, because that $50 at risk, that's what $50 can buy. That's dinner. That's whatever. And I think that's something that a lot of people, it's like gambling. I don't know if you're a big gambler, but like I love going to Vegas and like I'll risk 10, 20, 30,000 on a crypto trade, and I'll be wrong and I will sleep like a baby.
Then you lose like a couple thousand.
Dude, I got friends, they're playing $5,000 a hand. I'm sweating $100 a hand.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, that's $100.
Yeah.
But when you're holding the chips,
yeah,
you're like, this is money. Like, you know what I mean? And so that sometimes that disassociation between what's real and what's not, it can mess with you. And so that's something that in trading, it cannot be taught. Like I said, we could sit here in 6 hours. I could teach you exactly what to do. I can give you a system from A to Z. But until you're out there risking your own money, going through those emotional swings, that's just reps. That's time in the gym, right? That's something that you can't, there's no shortcut. There's no secret sauce. There's no hidden indicator. That's just literally, you got to do it. And that's the only way to get better at it.
I love that, man. And that's so true. Like, there's like the Dunning-Kruger effect is so real in crypto. Like you come in a lot of times and you have kind of like that blissful ignorance to trading, and you might go on a really big winning streak. I see that so much with people. Like, for example, like me and you, like we started with crypto. You started way before I did. Hit it big, and you're like, oh I'm a day trader. I'm about to be, fuck everything. This is my job now. And then you start to really get that rude awakening, and you're like, okay, this is harder than I thought. And I think a lot of people get lost in that process, and they get discouraged, or they bruise their confidence, and it's, they expected, oh, it's just going to always be this easy. And I think that's, a lot of people that get into trading, get into it for the wrong reason, is because they look at it as, oh, I can push buttons from anywhere in the world. I just will buy this course and I'll learn to make money and my life's just going to change. And it's like, man, if it were that easy, it wouldn't have one of the highest failure rates of any industry. You know what I mean?
It's funny, like everyone's like, well, trading's so hard and that's why 90% of people fail. I think they fail because they give up. Right. And it's like, you can go find a David Goggins quote about this, I'm sure. But like you get to that kind of wall.
Yeah.
And
they don't carry the boats.
Not necessarily profitability, but like starting to see improvement is just beyond there. Right. But they get to that, well, they've lost a couple $1,000, they've blown a couple challenges, and they're just like, screw this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I said, the TA is not that hard, right?
Yeah.
Like you can find a pretty straightforward system. Go watch the ICT 2022 mentorship. Like that is a complete system.
Yeah.
But the hard part is, are you going to put in the reps? Are you going to put in the time in front of the charts? And then are you going to grind and realize that, yeah, this might take 6, 12 months before I'm seeing any sort of consistency.
Yeah.
It's just, everyone's got get rich quick, disease. Like go ask anyone who is successful. Everyone is an overnight success on the internet. They don't see, it's like the tip of the iceberg. They don't see all the stuff that led to what you're now seeing, us display. When we're on a boat, we got a nice watch on. It's like, yeah, but I put in the time. You don't you want to go to become a doctor, you gotta go to school for 8 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But people think because it's on the internet and you're just pressing buttons that it should just be, I'm like, you're learning a skill.
Yeah.
You can't pick up a guitar and expect to play Led Zeppelin. Like you got to put in the hours and the time. And I think that's why most people fail. I think most people are just lazy.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And they don't want to work, and that's okay. There's a reason, that, like I said, the rule of the atom at the beginning, that, the 1% seem to have all this money and the others don't. It's like, well, yes, there's certain like inequalities and inequities, but a lot of people are happy to just go to their job, work, they know their vacation time, they know what they're going to get paid, and that's fine. You know what I mean? Like should be, this isn't for everyone, but if you feel like you are motivated and you want to grind and you want to put in the time, I do think it's something that you can also do on the side of all the other stuff you're doing. Like you don't need to become a full-time trader tomorrow. You can work your job, you can go to school. I don't know about you, but like when I first I was working as an accountant, and then I was working at a bank, and like on my break, I was on the charts, right? After school, after work, I was going through ICT videos, and you can do both at the same time if you really want it.
Yeah.
It's just kind of up to you at that point, if you're willing to put in the time.
Yeah, and speaking of time too, like both of us, we have multiple businesses. We're extremely busy, but we'll still find the time to trade. You know what I mean? It's like once you love it. Yeah, once you learn it, and once you really dedicate yourself to it, and you make the decision, like, okay, this is it. So like that was a huge thing for me. Is anything that I'll do, I'm always like, I submit the time. I'm head first. I'm like, I'm going to lose money. I'm going to have that learning curve. And like you said, so many people, they don't look at it like that. And they get in thinking it's like, oh, I'll just buy this course and, I'm just going to be an overnight success. It's kind of like the guitar example. I use one, I say, Like, would you read a book on how to play a guitar and then just go like play a song?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. You're going to read a book on how to swim. If you don't know how to swim, you're going to drown. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have to go through it and learn by doing. And that just takes time, man. But yeah, so whenever you started trading, like just from, literally day one, when you took it seriously, to when you became consistently profitable, where you're actually pulling out money, you're actually, thinking, hey, this is a legit business. How long did that take you?
So my journey was a little bit abnormal, just because there was kind of some crypto mixed in there where I made money. But I generally tell people it was a little over 2 years before I felt like I knew what I was doing when I opened up the chart. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what I'm, obviously at the end of the day, it's about making money. Are you making more than you lose? A lot of people like to nerd out over the stats, right? What is your win rate? What's the average RR? How long are you holding trades? What's blah, blah. I think all that's great, especially early on, keeping a strict journal. But like, are you making more money than you're losing on a month-to-month basis? That's kind of when I consider profitability to kick in. Not necessarily saying you're making enough to pay all your bills, anything like that. Are you making more than you're losing? Is your account growing? Doesn't matter if you're not winning more than you're losing. Are you making money? That was around 2 years, I'd say. And that came with understanding exactly what I was looking for when I opened the chart. So when I was going through my chart earlier, I talked about like those very specific things that I'm looking for, the market structure, blah, blah, blah. You've got to have a system that is so simple, in my opinion, that you can write it out. And it's literally like a checkbox. Now, obviously there's some complexity to it, sure. But like, you need to be like, okay, here's my 5, 6, however many things it is, that if all of these things are happening, I know I got myself a trade. And once you kind of get to that point, I think that's like where you're either getting very close to or you're getting profitable. Because now I can open up charts in the morning and I can do a quick scan and I know if I'm trading or not that day, right? Whereas I think early on you spend so much time looking at the charts, you're gonna make stuff up that's not there, right? You're gonna force a trade onto the chart. Whereas now it's like I know exactly what I'm looking for, and I think that's a luxury that comes with experiences. I trade where I want to trade and when I want to trade. Crypto is a little different because sometimes it's Sunday and you want to be watching football, but like, guess what? The market's going up 10%. I gotta, get on my computer and look for stuff. But ideally, I'm marking out my areas of interest and the time in between, find other stuff to do, right? Whether it's playing video games, it's going to the gym, it's reading a book. I think that's where a lot of people mess up, but that to me is the turning point from figuring it out to profitability. Is obviously you got to be making money, but you got to know exactly what you're looking for when you sit down. So if you're not there at that point yet, that's where you want to get to.
Yeah, huge, bro. And I think that's a really good explanation of that. And I think that most people, they set their goal to make money or like as the outcome of what all their trading is going to be one day. Like that's their goal. And whenever they set that goal, they take trades and they really don't know what they're doing. And then anything that threatens that goal, like any losses, any, thing that just goes against them making a lot of money, it scares them, right? And they start, spiraling. And instead, like if you just had a goal to do exactly that. Okay, my goal right now, since I'm not making money, would be to find a system, right, that I can explain to someone else that I can, it's easy to execute, it's undeniable. So whenever they're looking at the chart, it's either I'm taking a trade or I'm not. If this happens, then I do this. And until you have that, there's no way you're going to be consistent. Like, maybe once you have some skin in the game, now you can look at things a little bit more discretionary. You're going to be, have the reps, like you said, and have the experience. But until then, all you should be doing is just trying to systematize your process, right? There are very few businesses that are successful that don't systematize their process. So, if you're trying to start a trading business, then why don't people do the same thing? And 100%. People will look for that to happen in 6 months or a year. 2 years is even like that. You did great. You know what I mean? A lot of people, it took me longer than 2 years. And I think people when they hear that, for whatever reason, it puts them off. But the same people will go pay 5-6 figures for a degree that takes 4 years. Yeah, it's probably never going to make them as much money as trading would if they really submitted to time and really did everything they were supposed to do. So, it's just funny how people think, man.
Yeah, I find as well, you were in sales before, you mentioned, and I came up I had an accounting finance background, but then I got into kind of the sales side of that world, like selling loans and stuff like that. And I had a really good sales manager. And he kind of was like, everyone focuses on the money, right? Oh, how much commission am I going to make? But he's like, you need to backtrack it. It's not the end goal that you need to worry about, like the money you make. It's the process to get to that end goal. Okay, so I want to make X number of dollars. Okay, well, how many deals is that closing? Okay, based on the statistics, we know how many calls or meetings do I have to set up to close that many deals? Okay, how many calls do I have to make to then set up that many deals that close that, or meetings that close that many deals? And it's like working that funnel backwards, and then it becomes a whole lot more manageable, right? Yeah. Because when you're looking at it from the bottom of the funnel, all you see is the one ball falling out, right? The one, the money. It's like, well, how did you get there? It's like, well, the top of the funnel is filled with, whatever. And it's like in sales, it was the calls, right? So with trading, it's that system and it's that process. The money will come, right? If you've done all the things correctly and you've back tested it, you've forward tested it, and now you're just implementing it, the timing of when it comes isn't necessarily up to you. There's going to be parts of the year where the market is range bound, and maybe your system, my system works really well in a range. It doesn't work as well when price, like in crypto right now, is vertical, because you don't get those daily pullbacks. You get a pullback on the hourly and then legs up again 10%. So there's going to be periods of time, but I know over a long enough data set, if I'm doing the same thing every time, it's systematic, it's systematized, I know my process, the money is just a byproduct of the process. And that's like so many things in life, right? People are focused on the destination, not the journey, as corny as that sounds, but like that's what it is. You need to know the steps that are more, it's hard to be like, I want to make $1 million trading. It's like, okay, well, how do you get there? That's such like a big goal, right? You got to break it down in like, what can I do today that is going to get me a step closer towards that goal? Okay, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and then it repeats, and then next thing you know, like you're making the money, and it's just a byproduct of all that work you put in leading up to it.
Yeah, no, and even to this day, like I can't agree with that more, but to this day, my goals, I'm not a big believer in like profit goals, like for a day or even a week. I think that'll just make people kind of like work. They're just going to trade more, even if they don't hit their goal, even if trades aren't there. Literally, my goal is just to follow my rules, right? I know that if I follow that over time, then like you said, the money's going to come, right? And, speaking of like, whenever people are kind of like, looking at all these people that are super successful, but they're just starting, right? A lot of times people are starting with, lower amounts of capital. They're obviously not just going to throw in hundreds of thousands of dollars into something they don't know what they're doing. So, to those people, and really back to like, kind of your younger self, like if you just had to go back knowing everything you know now, just to trade with, I don't know, like $1,000, $1,000, what would you tell that version of yourself?
I would have moved to Florida sooner. So nice here at the sun. I mean, listen, I think I can give you the corny answer, which I wouldn't I wouldn't change anything. It's all part of the process. But of course, there's things I would have changed. I think I wish I would have discovered ICT or someone like ICT a little earlier, that would have eliminated some of the money and time I wasted on, indicators and certain things that maybe they work. I do think trading is one of those things where there's a lot of ways to skin the cat. I think I'm all for ICT, right? But I'm not a cultist where I'm like, this is the only way.
Yeah.
Because I know people who make a ton of money and they draw trend lines and that's it. Or they use like some crazy indicator and like, whatever it is. Are you making money? That's the ultimate kind of goal at the end of the day. So I wish I would have found that sooner. I definitely would not have gone full time as soon as I did. Because I basically, as soon as I made a little bit of money, I'm like, this is it. Like I'm doing this. When I started losing money in that crypto kind of bear market, I then got into Forex and futures, and I was like trading options. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was trading because I needed the money to pay my bills. Like, so I'd be like on a Friday taking like end of day expiry options trades because I'm like, I need $1,000. Like I got to pay rent. And that's not a good place to be. I don't think there is any rush to make trading your full-time thing. I think for the majority of people, trading is an awesome side gig, especially if you're taking our advice and trading on the higher time frames. You do not need to do this full-time. You can have a job, you can be in school, you can have like the amount of people who have kids and families, and they message me and they're like, dude, like I'm taking 2 trades a week and I'm making an extra few $1,000s. Like for a regular person like that's life-changing money. People always talk about life-changing money being, 10 million bucks and you're retiring your parents. Like if you're making enough money to now cover your car payment, that's changing your life. And so I wouldn't have made the jump to full time because I think that was very detrimental because I learned a lot of bad habits and I wasted a lot of money and a lot of time, which I could have spent continuing to learn while having a steady income, covering all my expenses versus like literally trying to trade to survive. So that would probably be the biggest thing is, don't go full time too early and enjoy it, man. Like it's fun. I don't know, for everyone it's different, but like I was voracious with the content. Like as soon as I found it, I dove into it and it's all I could think about. Like I was at work. I got in trouble at work because I'd have my boss come around the corner and you're alt tabbing back to your Excel spreadsheet. You know what I mean? But like I was in it and I enjoyed it and I love the feeling of progress. Like I like going to the gym. I like working out. I like doing sports and the feeling of progression. Trading is like the ultimate because the progress that you make it's so visceral because you see yourself make more money. You see yourself get more consistent. It's so rewarding. And then, I probably lastly would not focus on social media, and that applies for everything in life, but you're always going to feel like you're underperforming and you're always going to be disappointed in your execution, your performance if you're spending a bunch of time on crypto Twitter, finance Twitter. There's always someone who's taken a trade better than you, who's got a nicer car than you, who's got a nicer watch than you. Like I think people underestimate how even subconsciously that can negatively affect your performance. Like if you go into the day starting being like, well, I did this. And like, did you follow your plan? Did you make money? Awesome. Like you crushed it today. Who cares that this guy made more? Like you're not in competition with him. You're in competition with yourself. And when you learn that, I think that's a huge leap that, this is you against you. This is the ultimate like one-on-one, sport. It's like the only thing that matters at the end of the year is like your P&L, your balance. Did you make money? It doesn't matter what anyone else did around you. So trying to avoid that noise, I think early on probably would have been good for me as well.
Yeah, no, that's huge, man. And I like that you pointed out like subconsciously, because a lot of people, you may not think that it's affecting you. Like, oh, no, I'm on social media, I'm learning a lot. And that's true. But, you're also seeing all the funded certificates. You're seeing the payouts. You're seeing people on their vacations. Like, I mean, like seeing us on a boat. You know what I mean? Like all that stuff. People just, they get the wow, but they don't get the how. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's huge. Like find someone you're learning from and then just kind of like, Twitter has a really good function, and that is that you can mute accounts. You can even mute words, right?
Yeah.
I have so many words muted just because it's like every time there's a new hype, you see all these people just coming in droves. They're just flocking to this new thing. What's the next strategy? What's the next big thing, And there's been like, it seems like there's one every quarter.
Well, that's another thing I wish I would do differently is find one strategy and stick with it, not the whole like flavor of the week thing. I especially with ICT fanboys and stuff like that is like, well, this is the new PD array. Well, let me tell you something. As someone who's followed ICT since 2013, he repackages the same stuff and just calls it different names.
Yeah.
Stuff he taught in 2022 mentorship, like I'm like, wasn't that called this? And he's like, no, this is now a Reaper inversion fair value gap. I'm like, okay, this guy's got to be trolling us at this point. But you can only repackage it so many times, and for ICT is a phenomenal marketer.
Yeah,
like
the master marketer.
He's a master marketer. He's said himself he's made way more money selling his mentorships than he has trading. Like we're talking tens of millions of dollars. So yeah, like all for it. But you're way better off being like, okay, this strategy works. It resonates with me. Spend 10,000 hours on that.
Right.
As opposed to seeing that new guy who's posting this slightly different thing and you're like, oh, now I'm going to try and do that. Way better off kind of trying to focus your energy on one thing, mastering it before trying to overcomplicate your, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and it goes back to working backwards, working the funnel backwards, because I think the only reason people do that is because their only goal is, oh, how do I get from zero to making $100,000? Oh, this will be the strategy that does it for me. This is it. It's going to be the one. Other people like this strategy. And it's like, okay, you have to think of it more of the identity-based goal. Okay, what kind of trader can make $100,000? Does a trader who's making $100,000 see a new YouTube video or a new Twitter trend and just hop on the bandwagon? Of course not, right? They find one thing, like you said, and they just sit there and master it and refine it in their own way to what works for them, right? And a lot of these strategies, they do work, right? But nobody is going to be successful trading 25 different strategies. I mean, it's just not practical, especially a new trader,
Well, what's the reason the strategy you were trading before didn't work? Is it because the strategy sucked, or is it because you didn't put in enough time to get it to a point where it was working for you? And what makes you think this new one that you found out is going to work all that better? A lot of the people you see on social media are marketers, right? They're marketing. We are marketing, right? I mean, when you get to a level in trading where you can start becoming more of an entrepreneur, and you can have trading related businesses and things like that. Like, I'm all for that. There's a small sect of people who are like, unless you make your money trading, like, you're a furu. And it's like, okay, well, in my opinion, if the person's proven that they can trade, they've got the certificates, they've got the history online where it's like, okay, this person knows what they're talking about, by all means, you should monetize your knowledge and your skill. Like, why not? I think it's silly not to. Multiple cash flow are necessary, I think, in this day and age, with the way that the economy is going and inflation, things like that. You don't want to be dependent on just one thing, right? Just the market, right? So I think the problem is when you're new, the marketing, it can be so much, right? And it's money. It's you see the nice watch. I get it. It's like going to the casino. There's a reason the slots light up and make a bunch of noises. Like, it's human nature. You see a guy with a nice car and a nice watch, like, your monkey brain is like, what does that guy do? And like, how do I get some of that? You know what I mean? So 100%. No, I would say no strategy flipping. Don't go full time too early. And wish ICT was my father. Would be my 3.
That's funny, man. Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize the end of ICT, like the core content, there's literally a segment or a class on how to sell a signal service.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. I think it's like, you can tell people that and they'll say, no way. And I'm like, oh, wait, you didn't finish the mentorship, did you? Yeah. And they're like, oh, but you're a fooer. It's like the same guy who's not even finishing the entire program that hates on people.
They watch month 1.
Yeah, right. Literally,
I think selling signals is a little more disingenuous than
selling a mentorship,
than teaching people, because the thing with a signal is, like, I can't send you the trade as quick. Like, I need to enter it first,
right?
You know what I mean? Especially in things like crypto. Like, I'll send trades, and like someone will, like, 4 hours later be like, hey, I'm like, dude, that signal's from 4 hours ago. That's when it was sent out. Like, you trying to take it now and then saying it didn't work. I'm like, well, we're 5%, prices already moved, things have changed.
You're at 0.5R, not 2R.
And the other problem with the signals is, let's say, God forbid, like, you get hit by a bus tomorrow. Now what's that person left with? They got nothing. Right? Whereas if you're teaching, there's a reason these, like, old adages are repeated. Like, you teach a man to fish, right? It's so much better. It's like, if I teach you the skill, I want you to be able to leave this Discord, this group, whatever, and you can still do this. You don't need me anymore. Yeah. You know what I mean?
No,
I'm like
100%.
the training wheels. You take them off the bike, you're on your own. Whereas I'm just driving you around everywhere, and then all of a sudden I say, I don't want to drive you around anymore. It's now been 2 years. You've paid me all this money, and maybe you made money on the signals, but now you're kind of back to square one, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. And there's like a right and wrong way to do it, for sure. Like, it's like when people you'll see some of these signal rooms, they'll just have like a trade, and then it'll be like TP1 is like 0.2R, and then they hit that and they're like, oh, we have an 80% win rate. And
didn't Kimmel just do a video on that one guy?
On Mamba FX, yeah. And it's so funny how people, like, were coming out in droves, like, calling. I mean, I don't think it was that many, but some people were like message him hate, and it's like, he literally, I mean, if you actually watch the video, I guarantee most people didn't even watch it, right? If you watch the video, he gave an honest review of it. It wasn't even just all total, just slander. It was just genuine, like, hey, I went into the group, here's what happened, and watch.
There's more of a review of what happened as opposed to saying like it was all bad. I mean, listen, like, I think there is especially in the Miami, I'm watching all the way from up in Canada. I see what's going on down here.
Man.
I'm like, okay, like I've been around long enough that I know a lot of this stuff is kind of fugazi. But some of it's not. Some of these guys can trade. But I think if you're going into this just looking for signals, your mindset is just wrong
100%.
already. Like, sure, if you're working, you're doing your thing, and you want to pay for a signal service because you want to make a little money on the side, maybe you will, maybe you won't. But if you're actually trying to learn to trade, find a mentor, right?
Yeah.
Like, find someone that you think can trade based on, the evidence available online, and then judge for yourself. And also, if you're a skeptic, try it out as well. People love to be like, that's BS, this is fake, but they've never even tried it. They haven't put the time into, like you said, watch the mentorship, maybe pay for the signal room for a month. Did you make any money? Oh, yes. Well, maybe it isn't a scam. Did you lose all your money? Did every trade go wrong? Then, there's your answer, right? The market will usually, answer these things itself. Like if the mentorship was shitty, no one would do it. Like, you know what I mean? There's a reason there's so many of us on Twitter because it worked. So, find out for yourself. Like, think for yourself as opposed to just what a bunch of random strangers on the internet say.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. And I really like the point you made that, if you're just getting into trading for a signal group, then you're in it for the wrong reasons. Like if you're, so I joined, like whenever I, started getting serious, like I bought crypto just based off of like friends telling me like, hey, buy Bitcoin and stuff. And then ended up losing a lot of money trying to even spot trade, just being an idiot. And then finally, whenever I really got serious, I bought into a signal room, but I didn't buy into it with the mindset, oh, like I'm just going to get a nice picture of my phone with numbers. I'm going to push buttons and make money. Like I went in and just like you said, I'm going to see if this works. And if it does work, how are these people doing it? And you get a community. Like I think network's really important with anything. So you get the community, but any of those where it's just like a Telegram room, there's nothing else except just a picture and a signal. Like it's just so detrimental to your journey because it's not teaching you anything. It's just flashing up in front of you. You think all these other people are making crazy money. Most of the time they're not. Yeah. And then you're not learning anything. And I think a huge part of your journey is making sure you don't form, and everybody's going to form bad habits and they're going to go through those, your learning curve. But I think that some people that have, like a really long journey to be profitable compared to a really short journey are those that didn't fall into like really bad habits or bad mental models. And the worst thing that can happen to a lot of people is they get in with these groups where the guy's just super, super flashy. Like all you see is the lifestyle, and that's, sadly enough, that's what converts. Like people convert just because like the Lambos, the watch, but those oftentimes it's just putting so many bad ideas in your head and the false expectations that's going to be you if you buy this program. And that's never going to be
That's
that.
not even trading. Like people are like, oh, look, I got my laptop on the beach. Like, my fiance can attest. Like I'm like in my office, like grinding, especially early on.
Like a hermit.
Yeah. Like I'm not going outside. I got the blinds closed. Like what are you talking about? From the beach, the Wi-Fi is no good. Like that's just not how it is. Or like if I'm out, like I'm in a position, like I'm staring at my phone all the time and stuff. Like it's not like people are like, oh, I don't want to have a boss. I want to have all this freedom. Like the market is the worst.
You have a boss.
Yeah, it is the worst boss there is. You can't even talk to them. Like there's no days off. So the lifestyle thing, it's like most of these people are fun. Do the math, right? Like if you're charging $200 for signals, and you got 2,000 people in that room. Yeah. You can afford a Lamborghini.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you don't got to get any trades right. So, but again, maybe some of them aren't BS. Maybe some of them are. I'm not here to judge because I don't know. I'm not going to call people out when I haven't tried their stuff. I don't actually know what's going on. But you can find out for yourself. It's $200. Like if you're taking this game seriously, you got to be willing to invest in it too. 100%. And that's another thing people in trading they're just like, I don't want to, why would I pay you to learn? If you're so good at trading, why are you charging me? It's like, buddy, I put my money into the game, whether it was paying for stuff myself or just the hours I put into this, losing my own money. So like, hell yeah, I'm going to charge you for some of my knowledge. And I think people who come into it not wanting to spend anything, like I just want to be taught for free and you should tell me for free because you make money trading. Just teach me how to do it. It's like such an insane concept to me, but like find out yourself. Like if you think something's BS, try it. Most of these things, the barrier to entry is pretty low. Try it out and see. But like, I think definitely be a little skeptical anytime you see someone where it's lifestyle first. If it's content first and then you see, he's also got a nice watch, he seems to live like a dope life, that makes sense. You can make a killing, in these markets if you know what you're doing. But anyone who like the first thing you see is like the change, the Lambos, the crazy partying, and they're like, dude, join my group and you're going to have this. I tell most people, I'm like, join my group and for a few years, you're going to hate your life. But then maybe if you stick with it, you can change your life in a meaningful way.
Yeah, man. No, I love that. And like you said, you never really know, because like there are some of the people that are living that lifestyle that are living enough trading for sure that you see. I like that you're transparent about it and you're like, yeah, like absolutely I'm going to charge you money because I had to invest my time into stuff. And, as you should, because the level of entitlement of some people, I think it's because ICT is free now, but they don't realize like ICT wasn't. It's not like he just was this guy.
Go watch 2,000 hours of his videos then.
Right,
but
yeah,
exactly. If you want me to summarize it for you in 50 hours,
yeah,
you're going to have to pay me. And I could tell people the same thing. They're like, well, can I learn? I don't want to pay. I say, okay, go on my YouTube.
Exactly.
And they go, but what video do I watch? I'm
Figure
like,
it out.
Yeah. I'm like, well, exactly. Like, at what point is it okay for me to ask for money for my time? Like, it's like asking someone who knows how to play guitar. Be like, well, you already know how to play and you make money because you're in a band. So you should just teach me how to play.
Yeah.
It's like, that's crazy. So, I mean, I give out my game every week on live stream, and I have tons of people who have never paid me a dime message me telling me I've changed their life, I've helped them do this, I've helped them do that. I have all these testimonials and they just put in the work. Yeah. Just like I did. I found ICT and a lot of his stuff, like I watch him on like 1.5x speed. I can't watch him on normal speed, but I've watched it all, right? And if you want me to kind of give you, and I also think some people maybe don't resonate with how he teaches. Not everyone can handle the rants.
It's like 2 hours for like a 15-minute video.
And then he's all calm in the mic, and then you kind of like pass out, and then you wake up and he's screaming at you, and you're like, what the hell happened? So yeah, like some people can't handle that, right? Yeah. It's like, okay, great. Like to me, if someone is condensing knowledge for me, even if it's not their own, like that's valuable. I value my time. I don't want to have to go and find 10 different things when I'm like, okay, I know this guy knows what he's doing because I've, followed him for a long time. I see him, I watch his videos, and he's saying I can pay him this much and I can learn what he does. Like that to me is a worthwhile investment. Again, if you're not willing to invest in your education and trading, you're not going to make it. Because maybe you don't want to buy a mentorship, but you need to pay for TradingView. You need to pay for tools. You need to pay for your tuition to the game, which is the money that you're going to lose. So if you go into it and you're not even willing to spend a couple $100 on figuring something out, I think your mindset going into it is completely wrong. Like you said, going to school, like you got to pay for the degree, right? Could you probably learn everything in a Bachelor of Business online? Probably. Or you can go to this place where it's all organized for you neatly and there's classes and, it's the same thing, but it's just a mindset thing. And I think if you go into trading with that mindset, you're setting yourself up, for failure. It's going to cost money one way or another, and it's going to take time. So be prepared.
Yeah, man. And like you said, like a huge value to any education a lot of times. Like I think that there's very few, and including ICT, right? Like we've seen stuff, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, but we've seen like, Turtle Soup or whatever, that was from Street Smarts, and he talks about it, and he talks about how he learned from Larry Williams. It's not like, he did create a lot of the concepts that he talks about, but he didn't create them all, and there's no problem with that. Like people always say like, oh yeah, ICT's a scammer. He didn't make up it's like, that's not the value provided. The value is organizing it and putting it into a system that you can implement. And now we have kind of the second iteration of that with all the people like you and I that take the concepts and say like, this is what I got from it that works for me. It's not the only way you could use it because, like you said, ICT, you could have a doctorate in it. It's basically, I always compare it to like, it's almost like a type of science, right? Like you have like biology, right? There's tons of different biologists that focus on different, parts of the school of thought, right, of the science. So it's kind of like ICT. Like there are very few traders who have the exact same setup and strategy, and you're just basically paying them to share like, okay, this is what worked for me, and this is what I was able to get from the content, and here's how I do it, here's how you can do it. And people have to just go around and find whoever they resonate with, from a teaching style standpoint, from their style of trading, from the kind of person they are. All that's super important. And, there's not one right way or one size fits all.
Like Gene online?
Oh, yeah, Gene. Yeah, Gene's
so
OG. I love Gene.
But he's deep.
Yeah.
Like I've never looked at like flout I don't look at seasonality. I'm not looking at yields and bond rates. I don't look at any of that stuff. Meanwhile, like I've watched a few of his videos and he's talking about stuff that is like over my head.
Yeah.
But it works for him and he's printing and it's like more power to you. But I'm like a monkey man. I'm like, okay, draw box, price goes box, buy. Like price goes up. Like I always tell people, I'm like, I'm like the ICT for dumb people. Like I found a way to kind of distill what I think sometimes are made overly complex topics into a way that almost anyone can understand them. And that's what works for me. Like if there's too many moving parts, it just doesn't work. But yeah, a lot of ways to skin the cat. There's a lot of degrees of, your black belt in ICT that you can have. Yeah. But you just got to find the flavor, and the way, like you said, that resonates with you and then stick to it.
Yeah. And like, I think, I'm with you on, you might say ICT for dumb people, but I think even for smart people, they should use that too, because like you see it all the time. It's like the bell curve, right? The people that are in the average pool, they always are going to overthink everything. They're going to learn all the ICT concepts and say like, oh, but there's the Asia low wasn't taken or this, and they're going to use 25 different concepts when in reality they'd make more money just focusing on something that's simple. Because whenever you're trading ICT or any strategy, a big part of it is like, you watch these videos and you see the strategy and you're like, okay, that's really easy. And then now the candles, they're still printing. They're not just there. You know what I mean? It's not, you don't have hindsight. So then you're just like, oh, there's 50 different things I have to look for. What do I do? Oh no. And then if you just had something simple, most of the time it's going to print more. Like that's always going to be
everyone can do process. Up the market maker buy model with all the, low risk buy and then the silver bullet and then this after the fact, and they mark it up with the lipstick and they're like, look how cool this is. It's like, okay, but did you take any of those 35 trades that you marked? Because I just bought the order block here and I made money today. Like, did you? There's a funny thing in crypto. It's the meme, and it's like the guy who's drooling, and then the guy who's like got the giga brain.
Yes.
And it's left curving it, right? And sometimes you got to left curve it in crypto, where it's like there's the guy who's like looking at all these different things, and like, okay, well, what is the chances the ETF's going to be approved? And I'm looking at this coin and reading the white paper, and then the guy who's like crypto good, like buy. Like he makes more money than everybody else, and like that's sometimes how it is. Like you can overanalyze the shit out of trading. Like I said earlier, you can always find a trade. Like if you really want to, on one time frame, one asset or another, like you're gonna find something that kind of fits your system. So the simpler it is and the more kind of clear cut the rules are, the better you're gonna be. Because I think as you improve in trading, you're gonna trade less than you think, not more. I think when you're taking a shitload of trades, it's probably because you don't really know what you're doing and you're just in and out of the market. You're probably taking trades maybe where not all the boxes are ticked. When you're really good, it's like, I'm doing business where I want to do business. And if that's not happening today, I'm not taking a trade today.
Yeah, 100%, man. And less is always more. Like the strategies that yield less trades are always going to be easier to actually profit from. Mm-hmm. And I think that, again, so many traders I see struggling. It's always daily bias, right? So like, for example, like daily bias, a lot of times is just, it's basically what you're trading. Like you're trading somebody's bias. Like when let's say price hits an order block on the 12-hour or the daily, and then we start to see these 1 hour shifts off of it. That's whenever somebody says, okay, now I have a bullish bias. So instead of, just executing right then and saying like, well, I'm holding this to where, the target or the draw on liquidity is and making 2 or 3 R, they'll go in and try to make, 10, 20 R in different trades. But in reality, they'll end up spending a lot of time, stressing themselves out and losing money. And not to say, because like, to be honest, I trade the lower time frames a lot, but if I started doing that whenever I first started, that would have been like catastrophic. I can't imagine, like, I didn't even look at 1 minute charts for a very, very long time.
Sure.
And it's like, even now I've started to kind of step back. Like really all of December, I traded up until the last trade I took in futures was the 7th. And then after that, it was just all daily or 4 hour entries on crypto. And I did better than I did in November, spending literally no time doing anything. What I mean? Just watching a daily and a 1 hour chart.
If you can't tell where the next daily candle is likely to go, like you have no business being on the 1 minute chart, because then it is literally noise. Yeah. Like I know people like the 1 minute's not noise. Like there's info there. I was like, there is if you have the higher time frame context.
Yes.
Right. The whole point of trading on the 1 minute is you're trying to sync up with a higher time frame, and you're just trying to be that much more precise, like I showed on my example in the chart there, I'm trying to sync up for that H12 higher low on the hourly. Theoretically, I could go down to the 1 minute and try and find the exact moment, but you don't need to. And at the end of the day, the reason I'm looking there on the 1 minute or the hourly in my instance is because I know where it's going on the 12 hour. I believe that the 12-hour bias is bullish. Therefore, those decisions you're making on the 15-minute and the hourly, they make a whole lot more sense. And I tell people that all the time. I'm like, look for yourself. Like if you're trying to long and you're on the low time frame and every bullish PD array is getting nuked, your high time frame bias is likely wrong and you're swimming upstream. But most people, they don't care. They want to go mark every single level on the low time frame and try and trade it. And that's part of the journey too. You need to, mess it up and make these mistakes. It's just gonna, the sooner you kind of get rid of those bad habits, it's hard to unlearn some things. And I think that's like we talked about, things you wish you learned earlier. It's like how I trade now. I had to unlearn certain bad habits that I had, forced onto myself. So the earlier you can find something that you think works and stick to it and build good habits, it's going to pay dividends massively down the line.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%, man. Like unlearning bad habits is just such a big part of your journey. Man. Like when I look back, I would say most of the time that I spent from like the stuff that I use now, almost like I'd say 90% of it, I knew so early in my career. I just look back and I'm like, what took so long? And of course it's going through the reps, but a lot of it was once you've gone through the reps and you've kind of materialized what you should be doing, it's really just weeding out all the bad habits you had on a psychological standpoint and, over trading, like all those little things where it's just like you form that mental model of doing dumb stuff, But
and you don't have anyone, like, unless you're paying for that level of mentorship, right? Like you're in it yourself, right? And like one of the hard things too is like, what kind of learner are you? And for me, it's like I had to do it to figure it out. I couldn't just watch the videos. Like I know some people, like I've been through the mentorship, like, this many times. I'm like, I don't have enough hours in the day to make it through that many times because I'm watching the video and then I'm in the charts, like trying to apply it to like make sure I get it. But yeah, man, like it's a crazy journey and like I think it's super fulfilling. I don't know about you, but I tell people that all the time. And, I'm sure you get this, all the time as well. I got one this morning, someone's like, yo, congrats on the engagement. Hey, by the way, like tell me about this trading thing you're doing. You know what I mean? And maybe that means it's time for me to like sell my crypto because I got like normies asking me about it again. Hopefully not that soon, but it is nuts. Like the entitlement, like people on the internet, I kind of get it. Like you're on the internet, you don't know me. For you to be like, hey dude, just like give me the answer, tell me the entry, right? Like you post a chart, they're like, yeah, but stop entry target. Yeah, sure. But when you have like a friend or something, like, dude, what's this trading thing? Like, can you just like teach me? I'm like, oh yeah, let me just like give you the secret recipe, bro. It's not like I've been, doing this, for the last decade of my life and like pouring so much time into it. But yeah, let me just teach you.
Just hop on a Zoom call.
Who hasn't messaged me or said anything to me except for you said like happy birthday on my Facebook wall 5 years ago. Yeah. Like it's crazy. They come out of the woodwork once you start like kind of having a little bit of, success, and it tells you a lot about people, right? Like the jealousy and things like that. But I mean, that's life.
Yeah, that's always how it's going to be. People always come around whenever they see, whenever you're just posting about charts and stuff, people will sit there and think like, oh yeah, like he's lazy, he just doesn't want to get a job. And then, oh, now they have a nice watch, going on vacations, like, oh, maybe this is legit.
I had an email I sent out in 2018. The bottom, Bitcoin was at like 3,500, Ethereum was like 80 to $100. And I wrote like, I'm talking like a 5,000 word essay.
Book.
Here's why I'm investing in crypto right now. Here's my reasoning. Here's the risks. Here's the coins I'm buying. Here's how you can buy it. Here's how you can get a ledger and like everything you would need to know to do it.
I thought you were a madman.
60 people. 2 people bought, my mom and my dad.
Dude, that's awesome.
And they didn't even want to, they're just like, can you just do it for me? It's too complicated. I'm like, sure. I had friends, and I sent updates too. I'd be like, hey, now this is doing, and I had friends be like, hey, stop, like take me off this email chain. And I'm like, okay. And then those same people, and so like I sent out an email when Bitcoin hit like 60K, which was a 20X, and Ethereum I think did a 50X. I was like, all right, like email thread over. And like I had those same people like texting me being like, dude, should I buy this? Should I do that? And I'm like, kind of like, F you, dude.
Yeah, for real.
Like respectfully, like it's like you see me doing it and you think it's easy and you think it was like, oh, he just got lucky. It's like, dude, no. As much as like people think you might be getting lucky, like don't let anyone mistake. Like if you're making money in the game, you know, trading and that kind of stuff, it's because you put in the work, you know, and you deserve it. And don't let people make you think like, oh, well, you know, this is just some BS. He's just making money online. It's like, dude, this is hard work. And if you're able to be successful at it, like, you know, be proud of yourself and yeah, flex a little bit. It's okay too, right? Once you start making a little money, like buy that watch, right? That was a huge leap for me is when I was able to start turning that trading money into like stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I bought like a nice watch and I'm like, oh, like this is cool. Like this is real money. It's not just paying rent anymore. It's like, oh, I got a nicer car or whatever. And like, that's when you're really going to start, you know, and then it motivates you more, right? You want to grind harder. You start to see what's possible. And then it gets real crazy.
100%. It's like, and it happens so fast too. Like whenever it does happen, I don't want to, when it happens, like when it starts happening, it doesn't happen fast from the beginning, but once it starts happening, it's like surreal how quick things change. And before you know it, you're just like, holy shit. Like the last, you know, like a year of progress, like even last year for me to now, it's crazy. It feels like another lifetime ago sometimes. Like the time goes by fast, but at the same time, you know, it's insane how much can change once it clicks and once all the hard work starts to pay off. Then you know, you're going downstream. At
the
that
barrier
point.
to entry is high for sure, but it's like skiing or snowboarding, right? Like learning how to like turn is hard, but once you learn how to turn, the progression becomes like leaps and bounds as opposed to like baby steps, 100%. And then once you're kind of flowing, it's just like scaling, you know, what you're already doing. And that's where it really starts to get fun. You start leveraging prop accounts. Now, instead of trading one 100K account, you got 3 100K accounts with 3 different firms, and you know, start leveraging it that way. You start leveraging your network. It can get really exciting.
Yeah, Mayne. Well, Mayne, it's been awesome. We're going to probably wrap things up, man, but do you have any closing thoughts or just closing advice? Anything you want to, you know, I know you're doing Breakout, you have the Haven, you've got your YouTube and Twitch and everything, tons of value there. Anything you want to plug? Yeah,
I mean, anything about me, TraderMayne.com's got all my links and stuff for my group, for Breakout. So if you're looking at trade prop and you're trading crypto, Breakout's the place to do it. Check out my YouTube. I'm Trader Mayne on all platforms, Instagram, TikTok. So if you're getting messaged by anyone who's not explicitly Trader Mayne, is not me there trying to steal your money. I will never ask for your money. But yeah, man, no, this has been a lot of fun. I think these are really interesting types of conversations, stuff that I wish was more prevalent early on in my journey, because some of the best value I got early on was talking to people who were making money. And it's almost like reassurance of like what you're doing is not like futile. Like I'm telling you, when I first started, I was on forums for ICT, and like you would find that one guy on the forum who was making money, and everyone would just be bombarding him with questions and stuff, and he'd write back. So like now that we have this kind of like podcast trading, you know, finance talk culture, I think it's a great thing. I think it's super motivating. So, you know, if you're in the trenches, you're in the, you know, you're grinding, keep at it. You know, I can attest to what's possible if you put the work in. Hope to do some more of these in the future. Maybe I'll have you on one of mine down the line.
Beautiful, man. I love it. Great conversation, man.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.